We'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chad Bowling. I'm the broadband manager with the Wyoming Business Council. Thanks again for everyone joining today. Today we're going to have another BEAD roundtable session in preparation for the application close date. And before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that we will be pushing the application close date to January 24th at 5 p.m. To give everyone else a little bit extra time. We're still waiting on the grant agreement. We're actively working on that. And our goal is to have that published by the end of the week. And so that's the main reason why we wanted to push the close date a few weeks to give everyone the time needed to review it and get it completed. So again, the application close date will be pushed to January 24th at 5 p.m. And we'll send an official announcement here in a day or two as well. Again, today's call is an open roundtable, so feel free to ask questions. Raise your hand, type it in the Q&A if you're more comfortable that way. So we'll go ahead and get started, and anyone has any questions, ask away, and we'll unmute you as needed. Ben, are you able to unmute? Brooke is raising her hand. Are you able to unmute her?
Can you hear me?
There we go. Okay, yes. I can hear you now.
Hey, okay, I just hopped in here, so I might have missed this, but did you guys talk about the de-scoping files and when those are due and how we're supposed to incorporate those into our applications?
Not yet, but that's a really good segue. And I think we have enough people join so I can kind of jump into that now. So as most of you may recall, there was a newsletter that went out from WBO ahead of the holidays that had spoken about an approach for this application to be able to de-scope high cost locations as part of that application submission. And so I wanted to use some of the time of this call today to speak to that in more detail. This is something that is being deployed in other states as well, Western states that have a shortfall in funding compared to the need, as a way to kind of best utilize terrestrial technology. So just as a reminder, when NTIA put this program together, the goals included universal service, as well as a prioritization of fiber broadband and a prioritization of terrestrial broadband. And those goals don't always quite align when there's not an exorbitant amount of money to make that work. And so these programs had to be structured in such a way that we asked for specific areas for applicants to bid upon, right? And so you would apply for the entirety of those areas, or PAUs, project area units. And so what we're looking for in terms of responsive applications, we want applications from everyone and applications that come in that work from you from a business standpoint. But what we're asking for compliant applications is that you provide a cost for the entirety of the PAU or PAUs you're bidding on in order to serve those locations with whatever type of service that you're looking to provide. In addition to that, we understand that that may not be the most efficient use of our funds given the construct of the PAUs and the shortfall of the money. So we are offering, or we're identifying ways for applicants to provide input on what's actually doable in those specific PAUs. And there's two methods for that. One is the cost reduction spreadsheet, which is a way for you to identify individual high cost BSLs, right? So they'll have an FCC ID. That's what a PAU is. It's a collection of FCC IDs. It would be allowed for you to identify which of the location IDs in the PAUs you're looking to bid on are very not cost effective, right? So you can identify any number of those that make sense to you as a way to again, present your normal price, but then the cost reduction is a way to sort of jumpstart that negotiation process as we look to potentially streamline down some of the awards to maximize the amount of terrestrial infrastructure that gets placed. Additionally, there's another document in the same place, non-BEAD eligible location spreadsheet as well, which is something that came out in NTIA's guidance version 1.2, where they basically will be asking us to identify locations that were eligible during the BEAD challenge process, right? So we have to go into this program with them as eligible. But since the time of the challenge process may not be eligible for a multitude of reasons. One, there might be another federal award. Two, they may have been built out by private funding, or simply that may not even be an eligible BEAD address. It was put in the fabric originally, and it's a unmanned cabin somewhere that doesn't actually need broadband. So it's an opportunity to identify what those locations are. Since you are the ISPs that serve those areas, you are the boots on the ground, you have a better idea than what the federal government does on what's a serviceable location and not. There's a separate spreadsheet to put together. It's very similar. You identify the FCC location ID. In this case, you also provide a code. The NTI has identified several codes. I mentioned those, like they're already funded. They are not an eligible location. There's enforceable commitment, etc. And then it asks for you to provide some evidence. And there's not tons of detail around what that looks like, but I imagine the evidence that you provide would be very similar to what you did during the challenge process to prove that a location is not eligible for BEAD. So there's sort of two mechanisms to hit at individual BSLs that you are going to be included in your application, but a way to kind of get through to the negotiation process and discuss why they may not be ultimately served if you are awarded. And I'll take a breath to let everyone soak that in. And then in our user guide, the project user guide, application user guide, there is a subsection, I believe it's 4.2. So in order to get this information from you, we looked as this was conveyed to us kind of after the application had already launched. We tried to find a way for you to provide this information to us without having to alter the application portal. And so what we've settled on is when you're uploading your zip folder in for item 4.2, which is your shape files containing your proposed project boundary, your locations, your infrastructure, will allow you to upload a separate zip file in there that contains the sheets that we put on the BEAD application website, which again are listed as the Wyoming high cost location identification and price reduction template, as well as the Wyoming non-served BEAD locations template. These are Excel spreadsheets that have been formatted for you to simply go in and put in the information that I explained and submit that as part of your application. Again, we are looking for applications that come in and provide universal service and bid on that, but we are open to that level of de-scoping that we've talked about. So that's sort of the breakdown on what that looks like. And I'm happy to answer any more questions on that or dive into any clarity.
Perfect. Thanks, Mitch. Oh, go ahead, Brooke. It looks like you raised your hand again. Okay. All right. Looks like we have another question in the chat. So the first question is question 6-1A, asks for multiple files, but the portal only shows the first file loaded. Is there a way to validate that both files are loaded? Ben, is that something you can help with?
I don't know on the specific question, but I'm pretty sure at the end of it, they could review all files uploaded to I think it's called the file manager or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can look into that and get back. I remember that it does allow, it's supposed to be set up in a way that allows multiple files to be uploaded. And I think if this is a problem with the portal, we'll either resolve it or make sure that we can find whatever appropriate leeway is needed on that question. So what we can do is take that one down and we'll provide a proper response to the FAQ. But I think just to answer the question, we we'll make sure that like that it won't disqualify anyone. If there's an issue with the portal, it won't result in a disqualification from anyone's application.
All right, thanks, Mitch. The next question in the chat says, can we include multiple BSL IDs per line in the cost reduction spreadsheet?
So we would like for you to submit one BSL ID, or FCC ID is the ID of the BSL per line, and you can use as many lines as you need. The number of locations you look to descope is up to you and your strategy on how you want to proceed, but we would like one per item for a quick, it will just help us to do it that way, and just kind of short circuit the longer conversation. We realize that costs for deployment aren't by BSL, right? There could be a situation where you need to build middle mile 10 miles in order to serve 30 locations, and just because it's only a little bit of money to serve the ones behind the first one you serve doesn't mean that they're actually that cost. So I think there's multiple ways you can show that, and as we go into negotiation, we'll definitely consider those things. There's a couple different ways that people could show that information. You could take those 30 locations and divide them by the total cost of, to build all of them and have them be the same price, and then we'll kind of intuitively know that you're talking about all those sections together. Or you can go about it in other ways. I think what you submit here isn't necessarily going to be set in stone. It's to begin the negotiation process and how we approach it. So the better we can get the information, the easier it'll facilitate things in the future. But if we can get it in a uniform way, that, to your point, I think if the question's around like, what if one's 9 million and the other one's 0.1 million, it may not be the same. So if you can find a way to articulate what the costs are in a reasonable way, that'd be very helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitch. And the next question, where in the portal do you post the two templates identifying the explanation for high cost locations and the other with the cost reduction template?
Yeah, since the application was already set up before this information was sort of relayed to the program, and we found a way to put it in, we couldn't change the portal. So what we're asking for you to do is upload it in the zip folder under 4.2. So you're going to submit a folder, zip folder for your shape files anyway. So within that, in the user guide has been updated to basically say the same thing. You'll have two sub zip folders in that zip folder. Zip folder A, which will contain your shape files as intended, and then zip folder B, which will include your cost reduction and non-eligible location spreadsheets, as well as if you are doing non-eligible locations and have evidence, you'll place them in there as well. So two zip folders. So 4.2 is the answer. And if you go to the user guide, it should direct you.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question, can you repeat why the application date is being pushed back? So yeah, we are pushing back the application date again to January 24th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And that is to give all the stakeholders on this call time to review the grant application. We will be posting that. The goal is to get it posted. We haven't posted it yet. We plan on posting it by the end of the week. And that is to give everyone on this call time to review with their legal team and get it completed and sent in. So that is why we're pushing it back, to get everyone proper time to review it. Excuse me, that's the grant agreement, not the grant application. Let's see, the next question. On the application for the project cost template, it asks for a date of completion. Is that the date the application is submitted or anticipated date of completion of the project?
That's a good question. Is the date of the anticipated completion of the project to match what you submit in your other documents in the application?
Thanks, Mitch. The next question, for letters of support, do they have to be merged into one file, or will that also allow multiple files to be uploaded?
For the first letter of support, which is uploaded with 3.8A, that should be the one letter because it's from the municipality or jurisdiction that has the most BSLs. But for the additional letters of support, if you have any, and I think that's 3.8C, that allows up to 10 files. So if you happen to have more than 10 letters of support, I would recommend merging a couple of those, or you can just go ahead and merge all into one file. But in 3.8C, if you do have multiple to upload, you have up to 10 files that you can upload.
Thanks, Julie. And the next question is the Wyoming Business Council, Wyoming Broadband Office firm on requiring a legal opinion at this stage of the process. The information being requested to be opined to is generally not part of an attorney opinion that would be provided at the agreement signing stage.
Yes, in section 5.12, we are requiring a legal opinion for the applicant's ability to carry out the activities.
Thanks, Julie. And the next question is, how do you want us to report the unserved versus underserved ratio? Just in the technical narrative? Is there a specific place you will look in the application for that data?
So for that one specifically, we know what PAUs you are bidding on, right? And within that, we can derive what the unserved to total, unserved, underserved ratio is going to be. We're going to, again, compliant applications assume universal coverage of the PAU. So we're going to look for those metrics already built into the information. We're not going to ask you to derive anything that we can derive ourselves.
Thanks, Mitch. And the next question says, will grant money reimbursements be tied in any way to match expenditures?
So I think this is information that'll become more clear when we release the draft agreement. And again, one of the reasons why we're pushing back the submission date to 5 p.m. on the 24th is to give applicants enough time to review that information and understand what we're looking for.
Right. The next question, looks like there's some confusion about extending the application close submission. Is it the 10th or the 24th? So the application close date will be pushed to January 24th, or the application close date will be pushed to the January 24th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And the next question, what does the timeline look like after applications are submitted? How long will the state need to review and start the negotiation phase?
So I think the answer on that is depends. In a perfect world, everyone will fill out the applications in the best way possible, and it'll be really easy for us to go through completeness curing and reviews of that and be able to jump right into negotiations. But what we found in other states is that's not always the case, and so it's really going to depend on what state the applications come in. Ideally, they'll come in good. We'll be able to start pretty quickly, but again, that's just a caveat on what comes in the information, because we want to make sure that what comes in before we start the negotiation process is correct and complete. And so it will just depend on that information.
Thanks, Mitch. And the next question, what is WBC WVO considering as built? Actual end user locations or those that can be built within 10 days of reasonable request? How does the WBC WBO anticipate handling locations not built to or taking service against build obligation?
All right. So the federal government term of you're able to build to within 10 days of reasonable request, I take that as if someone requests service, you're able to provide them service within 10 days. That's sort of how the federal government looks at being, I guess I'll use the word connected also with quotes around it as opposed to built, right? That is your connected obligation. You don't actually have to serve someone, which is put in the drop the CPE equipment to be serving them to count as built. You just have to be in a position to do that. And so whether you stop at their driveway and that's 300 feet away or longer, right? If you're making the commitment to connect them, that is, you're able to serve them within 10 days of them asking. And if the question is more around like, how are we considering that for the purposes of completion of our program, or if you're about previously built things or connected things, if you want to do any additional clarification, I can try to speak to what you're asking for there.
Thanks, Mitch. That was the last question in the Q&A section for now. Again, if anyone would like to raise their hand, we can unmute you and allow you to speak. Or if you're more comfortable, type your question into the chat and we'll answer your questions that way.
And I could just, use the dead air to reiterate what we talked about a little bit earlier. The newsletter that went out ahead of the holidays from WBO was to remind everyone that we are including high cost descoping and non-BEAD eligible location descoping within the application. Granted, this is what other states in the West are doing that have a shortfall in money compared to need of terrestrial service. So we are still, again, looking for the proposals of universal coverage, but we are offering applicants the ability to identify locations that are unreasonably high cost or maybe even not eligible as they know more than what the federal government may understand as eligible locations. And we also know that things have changed since the challenge process and time moves forward and things get connected. So we're looking to capture that information in those proposals that will help support a quicker and more efficient negotiation process.
All right, no other questions have come in yet. We'll give it just another couple of minutes in case anyone decides to ask.
And while I'll keep filling the air, Chad, just to enjoyable. But again, we're pushing. The intention is to push back the application submission closing date to 5 p.m. local on the 24th. The reasoning behind this is we are looking to publish the BEAD subgrantee agreement by the end of this week, and we want to give applicants enough time to review, understand, ask FAQ questions about that document ahead of closing. Sorry. So the next question coming in, will benchmarks be recalibrated when the locations are put on the high cost spreadsheet? Does the high cost spreadsheet impact the price point calculation? The answer is no. This is more of a way to facilitate negotiation and a step forward. The benchmark, the reference pricing, which is similar in other states, just is the initial understanding from the government of what things should cost, and that's what that BEAD outlay score is against. So the cost, the scoring won't be impacted by the high cost spreadsheet. Is more of a way to facilitate a smoother and more efficient negotiation process.
If anyone has any questions, please ask them. We're happy to help wherever we can.
That's right. And what we'll be doing too is publishing another version of the FAQ in the next day or so with the questions that have come in and any additional questions. So if you don't get something answered or you didn't think to ask something on this webinar, feel free to submit that to WBO and we'll include that in the FAQ that we work to put together.
Perfect. I'm not seeing any more questions at this time. Oh, we have one more. What does the timeline look like after the application submission?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess we're going to be working backwards, certainly from our IPv2 approval. So we get a 1 year deadline from NTIA uh, to be done with our final proposal, right? And we received it, Chad. I don't even know off the top of my head, but I think it was like late summer or fall of this last year. So that would be like the absolute drop dead date. But we are intending to move quicker than that on the WBO side, because what we would really like to do is have awardees be in a position to start construction for the 2026 build season. Given that we have to get through this process, we have to make awardees, we have to get approval from the NTIA that our decisions were correct, and then we have to begin the contract phase and then give you enough time to do engineering and permitting so that you can hit the ground running in the build season. It's our intention to wrap this up as soon as we possibly can in order to maximize your 2026 build season, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you. You're very welcome.
Oh yes, July 29th is the drop dead date. Thanks, David. But yeah, we hope to beat that. So the aforementioned, we can make sure that you're able to hit the ground running on the 2026 build season is the goal.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions right now. So all right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If there are any other questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll do whatever we can to get them answered as quickly as possible. Happy New Year, everyone, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Have a great rest of the day. And again, this recording will be posted on the website later today or first thing in the morning. So feel free. I encourage you to review it if you have any questions or need to jog your memory. Everyone have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys.